What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Thank you for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got a 2 versus 2 versus 1 versus 1 on 30 Age Reforged done on the Numinos map. This is a pretty interesting map with some varied terrain. You've got an urban setting, of course, which dominates most of the map, but you've also got some choke points and some plains outside the city that make it a little bit more interesting. And of course, there's this actually a bridge battle that could potentially take place down here, but you don't often see on a Numinos. But still, there is a lot of potential with this map, which is why it is one of, I wouldn't say my most favorite. The title definitely belongs to Anduin, but it is definitely one of my preferred maps. But in any case, before we get into the replay itself, let's take a look at some of the army comps. The first army we're looking at today is the Free Peoples of Eriador, being commanded by Sawbones McTavish. He's got a couple units of hobbitry and arms. They're very low tier armies, except for the players who are on their own, who actually have the money to afford proper troops. But for the most part, the players with a teammate are going to have to really use their teamwork and the terrain together in order to get the edge over the single player teams. But in any case, 2 units of hobbitry at arms, 3 units of lumbermen, 2 units of banded javelins who throw what appear to be sharpened pencils. I find them hilarious. He's got 3 units of archer militia, 1 unit of the Black Wolves, which is where his general is hanging out. But in addition to all of that, he's also got a fair amount of high-tier archers. Now, I'm just not too sure where they're hiding at the moment. Where are they? They've got to be in the street or something like that. Yes, he's got a couple units of Greenway Guards. But in addition to all of that, he's got some hidden archers over here somewhere. Come on, where are they? Where are they? There they are, the Forge Hell Gatekeepers. Everybody loves these guys. I have heard a few mentions of them being a little bit overpowered, but honestly, they're not that bad, and Eriador needs them to keep their roster together. They can provide an anchor for the Eriador line once they are out of ammunition, and of course, naturally being crossbows, they are very, very potent at range, but they do lack the range of longbows and things like that. And finally, Sawbones is bringing 2 units of Cardolan Knights. Ooh, a little bit of lag there. 2 units of Cardolan Knights. They're alright. They are decent. I would say they're medium tier heavy cavalry. They've got an extra HP, so they will stick around for a little bit longer than units that lack that. But he does also have a single unit of Dunedain Bodyguard, which they're not bad as well. I would say that it says they're light cavalry, but honestly they function more like a mid to high tier heavy cavalry unit. They're not bad. All in all, they're kind of just okay. Moving on now to his ally, who is in this gigantic blob here. He's got 1 unit of Snaga Skirmishers, 4 units of the Lending Veterans, 6 units of the Uruk Reavers, one of which I believe has his general in it, 3 units of crossbows, and 1 unit of Uruk Bombers. So they went for a lot of AP, from what I understand, because they really want to beat down the Dwarves, which is the next army we're going to take a look at. This one being commanded by Glowbox. He's got 1 unit of Blacklock Engineers, 1 unit of Sons of the Fallen, 1 unit of Catapult, 1 unit of Ballista, and where's the rest of his forces? I believe he has 1 unit of Sons of Durin, who are hanging out oh yes, they're over here in a big blob. So again, he's got 1 unit of Sons of Durin, 3 units of Ironfoot Crossbows, 1 unit of Ironfoot Axe Throwers, 1 unit of the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. He's also got... where are these? Got some Mithril Guard, some Dragon Slayers of Ered Mithrin, which is where his general's going to be hanging out, 2 units of Erebor Infantry, and I think he's also got a single unit of Dwarven Noblemen to round off the infantry force. Obviously, due to his lack of cavalry, he wants to fight in an urban environment because that is where the dwarves are going to excel. So Glowbox is going to be playing to his strengths today, given the look of his army comp. Moving on now to the final 2 armies. First of all, we have the forces of Gundabad being commanded by General WVPM. He's got, I believe, 3 units of Rudour Savages, 3 units of Goblin Trackers, 1 unit of Witch Realm Blackguard, which I believe is where his general is. Yeah, there's Azog the Ugly hanging out right there. He's also got... let's see where they're hiding now. He's got 3 units of Black Uruks, a lot of which are up here. 1 unit of Snow Trolls, rather, who are up on the wall, jeering at, I don't know, the sunrise or something. Trolls don't like sunlight, so I assume that's what they're doing. He's also got 2 units of Witch Realm Pikes, 1 unit of the Scourge Raiders, and I think that just about does it for his army. So let's take a look at his ally, that being the forces of the Misty Mountains, being commanded by Mechanic 007. He's got 1 unit of Catapults, 2 units of Snaga Archers, 1 unit of the Bolg's Champions, who are right here, 2 units of War Riders, 1 unit of snow trolls, and a ton of infantry. He's got 2 units of Black Uruk Warband, 2 units of Goblin Infantry, kind of an expendable throwaway unit, which is going to make up his rear guard. He's also got 1 unit of Orc Bodyguards, who are not bad. They may be orcs, but do not underestimate them. They've got multiple HP, pretty decent armor and defense values, and they're also AP, as bodyguard units tend to be. At least I think they're AP. They may be one of the few bodyguard units that lack it, but at least they previously used to be AP. I'm not sure. I'd have to check about that one. Check onto that one, I should say. He's also got a couple units of the Blackwatch Legion, who are honestly amazing. These guys were originally intended to soak up arrow fire, but they have such high mass that they can actually run over lower mass units and formations, just steamroll them, and deal a lot of damage. Don't let their low attack value fool you. These guys do have serious practical applications as line breakers. And I think that just about does it for his army. So let's move on to the final army. This is one of the players that are on their own, so they had a lot more money to deal with, or to spend on their armies. This is Konn, by the way, being commanded by Pope Fluffy Duck. He's got 2 units of Variag Cataphracts, 1 unit of Brotherhood of the Lance, 2 units of Nerniag Cataphracts, who are the golden-mounted cataphracts right here. He's got 4 units of Narad Footmen, 1 unit of Brotherhood of the Axe, 3 units of Nerniag Infantry, who are a medium-tier bow infantry. They're actually not bad. In close combat, they're okay, but their bow damage is actually quite high as well. I think they have about 10 missile damage, which in 0.91 puts them on tier with Elven Archers in terms of raw damage output. Naturally, it's going to be a little bit lower because they don't have the same accuracy, but still, the Nerniag Infantry, a very nice pick, especially in a walled area like this where they can do a lot of damage. Also bringing 1 unit of Narad Windblades, and I think that just about does it for his army. No, he's actually got, I believe, 3 units of the Haruzi Light Infantry, who are a really strong light infantry pick. They've got lots of numbers, not great attack and defense, but they have AP, which makes them definitely a worthy pick. They can be fairly cost-effective when you use them according to their strengths and support them a little bit. He's also got 1 unit of Brotherhood of the Bow. That's the final unit in that army, which is where his general's going to be hanging out. Brotherhood of the Bow, a really strong general unit. They are one of the few AP arrow picks left in the game. And of course, they are horse archers with multiple HP. So you can use these guys pretty effectively for flanking attacks, for example, or really anything because their AP arrows are going to ignore shield values from the front. But that just about does it for the army compositions. Let's go ahead and let's jump into the replay. I hope you guys enjoy it. As the battle begins, we can see Misty Mountains begin to pull all of their forces back behind this choke point, which is a good idea for a couple of reasons. One, it allows them to consolidate with their ally Gundabad, who is waiting just behind the walls. But it also denies the Kondis faction, who, as we can see, are sallying out right now to menace the rear of the Misty Mountain host. It denies them their biggest advantage as a faction. Konn's infantry is alright. Misty Mountains can grind them down with numbers, although they will have a difficult time dealing with the Narad Footmen. But really the killing power of Konn, and this army in particular, is their cavalry. There's a lot of cataphracts out there, and Misty Mountains cannot fight them head on. So by forcing them to funnel themselves into this choke point, he's going to be able to use his strengths, his numbers, and his artillery to his advantage and whittle them down, if Konn is foolish enough to take that kind of fight. But I think based on, and I'm just speculating here, Konn has brought a lot of cavalry to a predominantly urban environment, and Pope Fluffy Duck knows that Numinos is going to be a city, so I'm thinking that his strategy is going to be to pick at the other players, kind of play the vulture in the game, and use his cavalry to mop up enemy forces, to catch things at unawares, and to deal a lot of damage to them, ultimately swinging the tide of battle in his favor if he deploys his forces judiciously. I heard a horn going on. I was thinking that maybe Konn was going to come in from the rear with a nice charge from his cataphracts, but it looks like he is going to allow the goblin forces to pull away. And I'm not 100% sold on that. The wargers are dangerous. Naturally, they're anti-cavalry and anti-armor, but his cataphracts could very easily sweep these goblin forces away and allow him to get in to the soft, chewy catapult center of this Misty Mountains force, and that would allow him to neutralize one of his enemy's biggest advantages, and from then on he could just pound away at the Misty Mountains lines using his heavily armored horsemen. But I'm sure he has his reasons, probably not wanting to get too close to this the entirety of the Misty Mountains army, which would allow his cavalrymen to be swarmed and overtaken by wargs, by everything else that the Misty Mountains has at their disposal. And of course, no one wants to funnel themselves into a spot like this. It would be a risk, but I think it is a risk that is worth taking. Moving on to the center, looks like Gundabad just kind of spreading their forces out, looking to cover all of the possibilities of attack from the other players in the game. But so far, just kind of consolidating their forces and waiting for their ally, the Misty Mountains, to join them, and then they'll strike out from there. Over in the center, we can see that Eriador and Isengard have made a little bit of a fortress out of this central plaza, which is definitely bold. It does put them in the middle of essentially everybody, allowing them to be attacked from multiple angles, but of course, it does give them some nice choke points that they can use to kind of make up for the lack of quality amongst their infantrymen. Although, of course, if they are attacked by multiple forces on different fronts, they will fall apart very quickly. The Free Peoples and Isengard have not brought the composition to really be a danger to even, I would say, even one army. Well, it depends on the army. I suppose if they're going to be fighting off or facing off against the dwarves, who under Glowbox are now charging into battle with the Sons of Durin, about to get stuck in with these lumbermen, then that would be a really big problem for them. But against the Misty Mountains and Gundabad, they might fare a little bit better. Speaking of the dwarves, we can see them pulling as much of their forces in here as possible. Meanwhile, Eriador outside trying to hammer away at the Dwarven forces, probably trying to get the artillery crew. Looks like Glowbox trying to get those ballistas inside, or at the very least save the crew from a messy death at the hands of these Eriador cavalrymen. Heavy losses, probably mostly due to the Sons of the Fallen being present here. But they did manage to... no, they really didn't do much to the airborne infantry, but they did get some of the crew, which I think is their biggest concern. If they can whittle down the Dwarven artillery pieces, then they might have a better run of it fighting against the dwarves in these kind of choke points. With the artillery, though, would be utterly suicide. Speaking of artillery, you can see the catapult taken some early losses from some very well-placed companies of not Free Peoples of Eriador, of Forge-Hill Gatekeepers. These guys are deadly, deadly crossbows, and they're a nice anchor for the Eriador line. Let's speed things up a little bit here. A beautiful shot there onto the catapults, which seems to be targeting the infantrymen that Sawbones has pulled to defend his crossbows. A fair amount of damage there. It's probably about 12 or 15 or so of these Greenway guards that have fallen in battle. But honestly, the catapult should be training its sights on the Forge-Hill Gatekeepers. They are worth far more in melee and at ranged, much more expensive unit, and they're currently chewing out this poor catapult unit. So unless Glowbox is inclined to fall back from here, he will lose his catapult crew. Look at the damage that they're doing. And it looks like maybe that's what Glowbox is going to do. Yeah, we can see that catapult crew falling back, getting the hell out of there, not wanting to stay within the clutches of those Forge-Hill Gatekeepers, because they will just chew these guys out. Glowbox forming up with his companies of Ironfoot crossbows, looking to get a little bit of revenge on those Forge-Hill Gatekeepers, who are nicely funneled into that street for these three crossbows to pick them apart like skeet shooting. Looks like we got some additional not artillery fire, but archer fire coming in from some of Sawbones. I think it would be his archers. His archer militia now falling back, not liking that angle, but still not a bad effort. Trying to put a little bit of enfilading fire into those Ironfoot crossbows is a decent enough idea. Glowbox, intent on reclaiming his catapult, gonna rush forward with the crew, try and get out of there as quickly as possible. At the same time, moving forward his Ironfoot crossbows here on the ground and above as well. Gonna allow him to simultaneously pressure the Forge-Hill Gatekeepers in the street out there, but also help out his infantry against the relentless cavalry cycle charges of the Eriador Cavalry Corps. Decent amount of damage there to the airborne infantry. Surprising enough, these guys are really elite. 2 HP AP. It's a shame to lose them to cavalry charges. These guys can really go a long way in the game for you. So we've got some Dunedain bodyguards locked in combat here against some of the airborne infantry and the unit of Ballista, which is taking some reasonably heavy casualties, down to about half strength, a little bit less. If this keeps up, Eriador will accomplish their goal of wiping out the artillery pieces, but they're going to lose their cavalry superiority, which against the Dwarven force that doesn't have any cavalry could prove to be decisive. Eriador is going to pull out of there, not wanting to lose any more lives than he already has. See them already taking... Actually, no, the Ironfoot crossbows are in fact firing at the Fortress Gatekeepers, and damn are they doing some damage. Look at that, that unit just melting under that pressure. A little bit of a crossbow duel here between these two forces, but the Ironfoot crossbows not faring much better. Focus fire here on this one unit of crossbows has really started to take effect. These poor Ironfoot crossbows over here, they're taking... Looks like they are the new target. They're going to start to take some seriously heavy casualties as well. But I don't think the Fortress Gatekeepers have the numbers to keep this up. Yeah, look at that. More of those crossbowmen falling in battle. Yeah, I'm not sure the Eriador is going to be able to keep that assault up for too much longer. They are losing some really important units in the process. Taking a quick jaunt over here, we can see it looks like a cavalry charge from Konn clean the lives of some filthy goblin infantry, but nobody cares about them. They are expendable. In response, Mechanic 007 has formed up 2 lines of Blackwatch Legion. There is no cavalry that's going to get through here in a hurry. Blackwatch Legion have a lot of mass. They're not as easy to push through as other infantry. If Konn were to commit in there, I think that we'd see a lot of dead horses. We're going to go ahead and we're going to fast forward just a little bit. Konn still patiently biding his time, waiting for an opening in the Misty Mountains back lines. Let's move back on to the confrontation between the Free Peoples and the Dwarves. Oh man, look at this. Look what these Sons of Durin have done. There's a lot of AP in here, but they don't have armor, they don't have melee defense. They're just getting hacked apart by these Sons of Durin. And Sawbones is actually going to fall back with the majority of his lumbermen. Try and get them out of there, leaving the hobbits to cover the rear. It may be that he's forming up some missiles, or he wants to give, yes, he wants to give the Uruk-hai crossbows an opportunity to fire into these Sons of Durin. That would be devastating for them. These guys have good armor, but the AP crossbow missiles are going to mostly negate it. And of course, Sons of Durin don't have the shields. In response, I think that was, yes indeed it was, Glowbox's Blacklock Engineers. These guys have body piercing. And damn, did they just slaughter those Uruk-hai crossbows, who are going to be forced to flee almost immediately. Sawbones in response going to move back his lumbermen, try and shore up the line a little bit, maybe even bait some of those Blacklock Engineers into wasting some of their ammo. Speaking of the Blacklocks, looks like they're coming under fire, I think, from some of the crossbows over here. Nice enfilading fire, going to claim the lives of 5 or 6 of those Blacklock Engineers, but Glowbox on top of it, going to move his forces into the gatehouse. That's going to give them a nice firing position on just about anything that they want. Uruk-hai crossbows coming back, looking to put some pressure on that Dwarven infantry. Blacklock Engineers, though, ready and waiting. I think the smart thing to do at this point would be to focus their fire on those Blacklocks, which indeed they are doing. Blacklocks reloading, firing back. That's going to be a lot of dead crossbows. Oh my goodness, that was a devastating volley. Still, Isengard has other crossbow units, and those Blacklocks only have a little bit of ammo, which is how that kind of killing power is justified. You have to be very choosy with your targets, otherwise you will use them on units that you would probably wish you hadn't. Let's take a look at how things are going over here. It looks like some of the Dwarven infantry has moved in against the Fortress Gatekeepers. These are the Erebor infantry. They're going to wipe those guys out and take pretty much no casualties in the process. So that's the end of a lot of Eriador's killing power. It was a decent gambit. He took a lot out of these Ironfoot crossbows. You can see them very heavily reduced. Oh, so many dead crossbows over here on the ground. But the dwarves can recover from this. They've still got crossbowmen. They've still got their artillery pieces, which is what Eriador was trying to silence in the first place. So Glowbox has done a good job at protecting the important, more vulnerable pieces of his army, meanwhile shutting down the more expensive killing units in the Eriador force. Moving back over to the center, it looks like Eriador and Isengard have decided they don't like that engagement at all. They don't want to fight the dwarves in an environment that's going to play to their strengths. So they're actually going to try and fall back here and begin to move towards one of these gates. And I think their ultimate goal, from the looks of things, is going to be to come out here and look for an opportunity to set up a defense in here, somewhere a little bit more wide open, where potentially the Dwarven forces can be flanked. Speaking of flankers, I wonder how much cavalry they have left. A significant amount, enough to be a real problem for the dwarves. So that may be their strategy, just trying to make the dwarves fight them in the open, where their cavalry can really start to move and take effect. Moving back over onto this end, looks like an extended kind of siege has settled in between the orcs of the Misty Mountains and the Konnish cavalry that's waiting out here. There's not really a whole lot that Konn can do. I think they're gonna have to start to move up through the city soon enough. Let's see what the rest of their army is up to. Yeah, I'm not too sure where they've gotten off. Ah, I see. The Konn forces now moved up here, and it looks like they're actually picking a fight with Gundabad. If I go around the corner here, there's a big scrap between the Snow Trolls and the Black Uruks. A lot of Black Uruks, actually. You can see them swarming atop the ramparts and everywhere else. Some Haruzi light infantry moving in to give the Nerniag infantry time to gun down these Black Uruks. As many two-handed units tend to be, these guys are quite vulnerable to missiles, and you can see a beautiful crossfire being set up here by Pope Fluffy Duck. He's got some Nerniag infantry there, and some on the far rampart as well, firing into the flank of the Black Uruks. So this is going to be a nightmare for those orc units. Down here, the Black Uruks fighting hard against the Nurad Footmen, but the Nurad Footmen, they are no slouches in melee. Surprisingly enough, even the Witch Realm Inquisitors are not going to be able to beat these guys in a straight fight. They've got too much AP, and they're just so cost efficient for what it costs to bring them. It looks like the good map player, not even interested in this fight at all, is going to try and push through and make it in to... I'm not too sure what he's going for, actually. The Haruzi light infantry, maybe. Maybe he wants to like get a hammer and anvil charge on the Nurad Footmen, but I'm not sure I would commit my bodyguard to this kind of situation where they're forced to push through a high-mass AP infantry like the Nurad Footmen. And even if he manages to get through, look at what Pope Fluffy Duck still has left. Another unit of Nurad Footmen moving in. Got some Nerniag infantry in behind them, backed up by some Brotherhood units in and around the gatehouse. Let's see what we got here. A straight shot from the Konn player to the dwarves. I wonder if the Konn player is going to go for it. It doesn't look like it. It looks like they're more content to just kind of sit where they are and try and deal with the forces of Gundabad. Speaking of, the Gundabad forces do it pretty well for themselves. Oh, pardon me. Managing to push through the first line of the runic defense. Savages now charging in to try and drive these guys off, which they're going to be successful in doing. The Haruzi light infantry breaking and running up the street, but the Nurad Footmen already moving in shield wall formation, ready to pick up where their comrades left off and to give them an opportunity to retreat and reform. Yeah, we can see a lot of bow fire coming in from both sides. We got some goblin trackers on the back line there. Nerniag infantry on the opposite rampart firing dead on into those Black Uruks, and they have massacred them. There's a lot of goblin trackers on the opposite ramparts raining fire down into the Nerniag infantry, and there's some Snaga support from below into the street. But these archers just not strong enough. The Gundabad and Misty Mountain forces just didn't bring things like crossbows, for example, that are capable of doing a lot of damage to infantry. The Nurad Footmen holding their ground well, but the Gundabad force bring in a lot of reinforcing troops. Look at this, ton of savages, some pikes as well. This is the kind of situation where pikes are going to be extremely valuable. I'm not sure that I would keep committing. So the Witch Realm Inquisitors have come in from behind the Nurad Footmen, hacking them down left and right. Konn is going to respond with a charge from their Brotherhood of the Axe and their Brotherhood of the Sword. Looking pretty ugly for that General's Bodyguard. If the Orcs of Gundabad lose it, they don't have a lot of high-tier forces. Their army may break and run at a moment's notice. Not right away, but earlier on in the battle than what they would otherwise do. Yes, certainly. Brotherhood of the Axe charging in to support their Nurad brothers. Getting stuck in on the front of Witch Realm pikemen. I'm not sure I would do this. This is a big risk. Although, actually, the Nurad Footmen, pardon me, the Nurad Footmen are in shield wall, so they are going to be able to push through the large mass of pikemen and deal a lot of damage to them. That's one of the few counters to pikes in this game. Even rear charges don't work. The two big ones are javelins and shield wall infantry. That is your only two reliable methods at dealing with a pike unit. Anything else is probably going to cost you a lot in lives and florins. Misty Mountain looking like they were moving in to reinforce the line over here. Actually, they're holding on quite nicely against the Narod footmen, who seem to be having an issue. They got their backs turned to the enemies, just asking to be dead. Meanwhile, those Mountain Uruks, and I think it's just one unit of Mountain Uruks. They're going to be able to push through the Narod footmen, no problem. And that is going to cause some potential issues for Konn unless they're able to reinforce this street and hold back the flanking forces of the Misty Mountains. Let's move a little back to the Eriador dwarf confrontation. Dwarves have moved into the town square, slowly taking the path that Eriador took to the outside. And let's take a look at this here. Again, they've arranged themselves in a series of layered choke points, which is normally a good idea when you're defending. You want to have a nice layered defense so you can reinforce certain areas when you think you're going to need them. But this is just putting themselves in the same situation twice. The dwarves are going to be able to come into these streets, fight with their flanks protected, and be able to bottle off any of the choke points that they're currently advancing down to the predations of the Free Peoples of Eriador Cavalry. And it looks like they've lost a lot of their cav. I'm not too sure how. Or on what. Oh no, you know what? Maybe I spoke too soon. Still a healthy unit of Cardinal Knights here. So if the dwarves are able to just block off every approach, those Cardinal Knights don't have the killing power to push through them. They're not Knights of Inuminas and they're not Bolg's champions. Moving back over onto the gatehouse, things all quiet on the eastern front. Although I say that now, Konn moving in, looking maybe like they want to test the defenses of the Misty Mountains, test their micro, and see how much attention they're paying to what they're currently doing. Brotherhood of the Lance leading the way, Pope Fluffy Duck charging hard into the Goblin ranks. It was a decent enough charge. I think they managed to drop their lances, but like I said, the high mass, multiple HP, and high armor of the Blackwatch Legion is going to allow them to hold back this tide. The rest of the Goblin forces here, this would be a big massacre in favor of the Misty Mountains Goblins. But as it is, the Orc player has sufficiently split his forces enough that Konn is feeling bold enough to charge into the front ranks of these Blackwatch Legion. A bold strategy, and one that is causing the pathfinding of these units to just absolutely freak out and flip its shit. But I'm not sure it's going to be worth it. The Blackwatch Legion holding really well against that cavalry attack. Meanwhile, a significant number of the Narod Windblades have managed to scoot around the right flank of that blockade, and they're going to barrel straight towards these undefended Snaga archers. Well, undefended for the most part. There is a unit of Warp Riders over there, but it looks like Fluffy Duck caught Mechanic 007 napping, and he's going to be able to get a nice charge there, connecting into the flank of the Snaga archers, running down many of them. But honestly, I'm not too sure if that was worth it. But this is the big but right here. Fluffy Duck barreling down towards the ranks of the Goblin infantry, gonna get a nice hammer and anvil into the backs of the Goblins, which is gonna rout one of them. Beautiful, and is gonna put the other one on the verge of routing themselves. Although honestly, it's a decent move, and it does kind of pay off in terms of getting rid of some of the chaff, but it is going to result in the War Grinders pinning the Narod Windblades against the Goblin Infantry. This is not a fight that this expensive cavalry unit is really equipped to win, and you can see them just getting hacked down. Now trying to flee through the masses of Goblin Infantry, but that's going to cost them a few more of their number in the retreat. The Wargs just munching everybody who's left over that they can get their hands on. Very expensive, very costly, and all for the price of a few Snaga archers, which I'm not convinced is the best thing. Although it did commit the Wargs to the front line, which is going to allow the Kondish Cavalry Corps to surround those Wargs, and is going to open up the flank to some arrow fire if Fluffy Duck decides he wants to bring in his reserve unit of Brotherhood of the Bow. Now would be a really good time to do that. Going to be able to get some nice flank and rear shots into this massive infantry, especially these Blackwatch Legion. If you're going to attack them with arrows, you're going to need every opportunity. So the AP arrows and some inflating fire is going to do him well. Moving back up to the ramparts, we can see that the battle rages on. Still a few units of Black Uruks, down to a meager 4, fighting hard against the Nerdiag infantry up here on the ramparts. But the result has been a massacre for both sides. We can see a lot of dead Nerdiags, a lot of dead Haruzi, and of course, dead Black Uruks as well, moving down into the city streets. The Brotherhood of the Sword, Brotherhood of the Axe, and what remains of the Narod Footmen starting to lose steam in the face of this Witch Realm pike wall. The pikes having done better than I would have expected them to against those shield wall Neurod foot infantry. I thought they were going to give these guys the business, but apparently they've managed to hold out and deal some serious casualties in return. At the same time, Misty Mountains bringing in some of their infantry to help their ally Gundabad hold down the fort. And if we just look in the back here, it's a complete and utter massacre. Some Nerniag infantry charging up this alleyway into another pile of dead bodies. That's a lot of dead Neurod footmen. And it would appear to my eye, not many dead goblins in return. So it looks like Konn is really struggling here to penetrate the defenses of Gundabad and the Misty Mountains, which is exactly what Gundabad and the Misty Mountains need to do. They need to work together, or they will be overwhelmed by these single-player teams. Up here we can see some more pikes, some Scourge Raiders, and other nasty things charging up against a very outnumbered group of Neurod assassins and a few Nerniag infantry still holding this tide at bay. See the Witch Realm Inquisitors now down to a meager 4, charging into the flank of these Goblin Trackers. But if those pikes turn around, they're going to skewer these horsemen. Actually, hold on. That's looks like they were trying to help their own infantry against Konn. I don't know why I mixed that up. But in any case, they're now down to a meager 4, so I would assume that they are here in the fight for a while. Got some wargs and other things like that in there as well. And looks like finally Gundabad and the Misty Mountains going to be able to break through and crush the Neurod assassins. I think it's just because of the sheer weight of numbers they're able to push through and hack down those lightly armored warriors. And I don't really know what Konn... Yeah, it's Konn. Yeah, screwed up my faction names today. I don't really know what Konn has left at this point. You can see a unit of wargs have managed to break through that cordon under Mechanic 007. Going to charge right into the back of these Brotherhood of the Sword and the rest of the Konnic infantry. Kondish. Faction names. I struggle with them today for whatever reason. Nice hammer and anvil charge from the wargs into the rear of this infantry blob. I think Konn's days are numbered. Really, all I think he's got left at this point is his cavalrymen. And actually, they haven't done too bad for themselves. There's not a lot of dead cav in there. I don't know where the rest of them have hidden themselves away, however. Looks like Konn has managed to break through, sort of. Oh no, they tried to flee across the walls, and they got themselves shot down for their trouble. I'm not too sure by what. Maybe some of those Snaga archers and things like that up here. So Konn finally managing to break through at the loss of most of their army. They've still got a fair amount of cavalry, but their infantry force really hurting. Pretty much destroyed at this point. And they're going to now come in to menace the flank of the Cardinal Knights. And it's important to note that as long as Konn comes out on top, this is a free-for-all match. This is not a point-based game. So Konn, if they can keep their troops down to the end and play off the other opponents against each other, who probably don't see Konn as too much of a threat at this point, then they can still pull out a win in this game. Over here we can see some of the Eriador cavalry contesting the passage from this gatehouse with the dwarves, but those Sons of the Fallen out there in the front, alongside the Arid Mithrin Dragon Slayers, are going to rout that unit of Cardolan Knights and send them fleeing for the hills. They're pretty close to the border too, so we may not see them come back. They may actually rout right in to the Kondish cavalry. A second wave coming in. The Cardolan Knights charging hard in the battle against some spearmen. What can they do but what they are doing now? It's a lot of Dwarvish heavy infantry. Most of them stand up nicely to charges. Looks like we got some. That would probably be the crossbows and things like that. Oh no, actually that's the archer militia. So it would be a good idea to bring up the crossbows at this point. Use the cavalry to try and hold these guys in a big blob for at least a little while, and then pepper them down with those AP arrows as best as you can. Because the dwarves do not have great numbers left at their disposal at this point. You can see most of their force out here. I think they've got some reserves. Yeah, they've got some axe throwers and things like that. But the axe thrower is definitely not the biggest threat in their army, and are easily dealt with. And looks like that's exactly what Sabon McTavish is trying to do, trying to hold these guys down so he can pepper them down with his missiles. I hope the crossbows are in here doing work, because now is a perfect opportunity. No, it doesn't look like it. Most of the crossbows still out here. They're definitely missing an opportunity to side through a significant portion of the Dwarven infantry. Looks like instead they're relying on possibly hammer and anvil tactics to try and whittle down this blob. But honestly, they need to bring their AP missiles to bear, and they need to do it real fast. There's also some bandit javelins in here as well, which would go a long way to peppering down this dwarvish blob, because I think the Glowbox has made a big mistake in clustering his forces like this, but unfortunately the Eriador players don't seem to be able to take advantage of it. See those Cardolan Knights, looks like they're going after, I'm not sure what they were after, maybe some of the the Blacklock Engineers, not wanting to deal with them. That's a good move. Cavalry dealt with them quite swiftly, but the rest of the Dwarvish Infantry is now sallied out. Again, a great opportunity. It really hurts my heart to see these guys getting away kind of scot-free for blobbing up their troops like this. Now let's take a quick look on the other side, see what remains from Misty Mountains and Gundabad. They've got a lot of forces left. Orc Bodyguard, Snow Trolls, a significant number of Bolt's Champions. The Blackwat's Legion still in pretty good shape. These Mordor Riot Cops still able to hold their own on the battlefield. They haven't been too heavily reduced by the Cavalry of Konn. Here are a lot of archers and things like that. So the other two players still in relatively good condition, but I think Gundabad has suffered some fairly heavy casualties at the hands of Konn, but really not a whole lot left from Konn at this point, at least not in their infantry department. They've been completely surrounded, charged down with these wargs and things like that, and it's just a massacre everywhere you look. Yeah, the inside of the streets are just running red with blood at this point, and most of it is that of Konn. Let's pop back over to the dwarves and the Free Peoples of Eriador / Isengard. So the dwarves have managed to deal with that fodder unit and are now spreading their forces out. Yeah, more and more archers kind of pouring their arrows into that blob, but these archer militia just don't have the missile damage to really do anything. They're not even going to dent these dwarves. We're going to go ahead and we're going to fast forward just a little bit here. The dwarves forming up a nice little cordon that is not going to be easily broken through by cavalry. And look at this, now they're bringing their artillery pieces to bear. Eriador already on top of this and firing into the catapult. But again, those archer militia just not doing what they need to do. I think that they'll be getting a buff in the .92 patch. I'm not 100% certain on that, but at the moment the archer militia just don't have a whole lot going for them. They have mass volley fire, which can be decent against low-tier light infantry, but even against the catapult, it's taken them like 3 or 4 volleys to kill anything. Oh, nice shots there. Right into the flank of Isengard. Beautiful enfilading fire from that catapult, taking advantage of the, I would say, the inattentiveness of the Isengard player, of St. Toady the Pacifist here. Isengard is naturally going to respond in kind by quickly getting their lines in order. You can see the crossbows moving forward now, but I think this is maybe a little bit too late. Oh wow, a massive charge here from the Isengard chaff. We've got the Dunlending veterans and the Uruk Reavers charging into battle together, alongside, I believe that is, no, actually that's the archer militia. They're going to get beat up quite badly, but the rest of these Isengard forces are AP, so they do stand a chance at least of doing some damage to the dwarves. Nice cavalry, nice cavalry charge from the back here. Looks like the Dunedain bodyguard coming out of nowhere into the Sons of Durin. Unfortunately, not the best chosen target. I think they were probably, oh my goodness. Oh, that would be the Uruk bombers getting themselves going, doing a lot of damage to those Erebor infantrymen. Damn, that is beautiful. Yeah, St. Toady the Pacifist kind of got caught with his pants down initially in that catapult volley, but damn, has he charged into battle with fire and fury and is doing a lot of damage to the dwarves. This is a precarious position for them to be in. They're really bottled up right now, and Isengard and Eriador do have the AP and the bodies to bury them behind a wall for a significant period of time. I think that's crossbow fire coming in now. Yes, indeed it is. Dwarves being surrounded, held down, and just peppered with AP missiles. Horrible war machines from Isengard, like those grenades that the Uruk bombers have available to them. It looks like Dwarven Valor and Steel will probably come out on top here. We can see a lot of routing. It's a significant amount of routing right there. I don't know if they lost a general or something like that, but yeah, things not looking too great for Eriador and Isengard, but they've got more reserves. They got more troops pouring in to hold down the dwarves and let them do their thing. Oh, wow. A beautiful shot there into the Snaga skirmishers. Hopefully it doesn't rout them. Yeah, doing their best to toss their javelin payloads into the dwarvish infantry. Dwarven infantry they're standing their ground remarkably well. I would have thought that the Uruk bombers and the javelins and all that stuff would be taking a heavier toll on them than it is. But it appears to me that the Dwarven armor is definitely worthy of the renown that it gets. Band of Javelins here getting engaged in close combat with Guards of Khazad-dûm. Oh, that is going to be ugly. Looks like those Khazad-dûm Reclaimers as well. Yes, this is not looking great for the Free Peoples and Isengard. It looked like they were going to be able to crush them just with the sheer numbers and the amount of AP that they brought, specifically to fight the dwarves. But unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to be the case. I think a lot of it has to do with them focusing their attention more on the infantry and less on this catapult. This catapult could have been scythed down by the crossbows and by the javelins and everything else that they had here very, very early on, which would have denied the dwarves that big advantage, because their Isengard and Eriador troops were very clumped up, and that is the perfect time to use your catapult. Especially close range like this, it is almost impossible for that catapult to miss. Ooh, that was a close one there. Those Isengard crossbows, I'm sure, are thanking their lucky stars. Yeah, the Eriador and Isengard line has really collapsed here under the weight of that massive Dwarven infantry. Let's see what Konn is doing all this time. Looks like Konn is going to take advantage of this chaos and move into... looks like they're going after the Uruk Reavers. Oh no! Just easy kills, I suppose. Konn just looking to shift the battle in their favor, but I don't think this is the way to go about it. I think letting these Uruk Reavers do as much damage to the Dwarven infantry as possible can only help Konn in the long run. Oh, those Nernian Cataphracts weren't enjoying that at all. Just a few of them died, but oh, they were on the verge of routing. Sons of Durin charging over here, looking like they want to surround these Uruk Reavers. More catapult volleys, thinning out the back lines of Isengard. Looks like we have a little bit of reforming in the back here. Some more Uruk Reavers have come back from routing, along with some Archer Militia, so we may see them thrown back into the fray. More Uruk Reavers on this end, charging back into battle, just trying to hold these guys down. Eriador now committing their Black Wolves General, another AP unit with multiple HP. Don't have a lot of melee defense or armor, though, so they, I think, are going to struggle against the dwarves, despite the AP and despite that extra HP. Got some Snaga skirmishers trying to flee back behind the relative safety of their allies' lines. Oh, there goes the Isengard General. Very unfortunate. Looks like we could see a little bit of missile fire coming into the catapult, but I think it's too little too late. This catapult has already paid for itself and caused several routes, which is going to allow the dwarves to break out of the bottleneck that they were previously in. Oh, these poor Uruk Reavers just not having fun against this airborne infantry. They managed to kill a few of them. It's just not enough. Oh man, these poor Uruk-hai crossbows, just because of the small area that they're in, it's very tight quarters. They're not able to fan out into loose formation, and that is going to cost them quite a lot out of this unit. As you can see, that catapult on its own has done a lot of damage. This is really going to be, I think, the deciding factor. Konn now has an open lane of attack almost into the back lines. The Uruk Reavers are about to flee, and they may be able to come in behind the Dwarven position. But Konn's still kind of biding their time, using their Nerniite Cataphracts and probing attacks on what appears to be the Free Peoples. Yeah, a lot of dead Black Wolves there. That is surprising. It seems to me that Isengard and Eriador are not the real threat at this point. A little while ago, they did have the largest army, but definitely the dwarves are the most dangerous. So I have to question that. Dwarves managing to push through, these Black Wolves just being overwhelmed, trying to hold on to this little township. There's just not enough of them left at this point. So we can see some Uruk-hai crossbows freaking out in the back. More and more Dwarven infantry pouring through the gap, hacking down those hated crossbow units. Todi falling back to reform with everything he's got left. He's got some Uruk-hai Reavers and things like that to hold them down, and a nice little firing position for his crossbows. I think that's... Oh no, the catapult is still here. As it moves forward, it is going to expose itself to all of those crossbow units, so hopefully Todi sees it coming and will react accordingly. And there goes the Eriador General. I think that's basically everything that Eriador has left at this point. And that is it. The Dwarven infantry is going to surge through this gap in the center. They are going to funnel themselves a little bit into here, which, if the crossbows get set up in time, they will be able to do at least a little bit of damage. But yeah, I don't think Isengard and Eriador are going to be winning this match anytime soon. One final charge here. The Uruk Reavers charging into battle against Khazad-dûm Reclaimers on one flank, and the Sons of the Fallen and the Guards of Khazad-dûm on the other. It's not a bad position that they're in. They are able to hold up multiple units simultaneously and expose their flanks to the skirmishers. But these Uruk Reavers are not going to be able to hold for long. Look at this. Some of them are already thinking about routing these Dragon Slayers of Ard Mithrin, pushing their way through the center. But they are going to find themselves exposed. Missile fire into the Mithril Guard, who are heavily reduced at this point. Honestly, the Dragon Slayers are probably the better choice to go after. They are much more deadly than a low-strength unit of Mithril Guard. In fact, in general, I find that the Mithril Guard are less killing machines and more of a holding infantry, whereas the Dragon Slayers of Ard Mithrin are a comfortable mix of the two. And some of those crossbows firing directly into the Dragon Slayers, who are actually going to turn around. Bit of a micro mistake here by Glowbox. So we got some of the Konndish cavalry in the back, that getting themselves entangled with the Sons of the Fallen. Not the best place for that cav to be. Brotherhood of the Lance stalking. What? They're just running through a building. Oh my goodness. Getting into the rear of the Axe Throwers and other things like that. These are the skirmish forces here, the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers and the Axe Throwers. They're a little bit more vulnerable to cavalry charges, and I think they have less mass than some of the other Dwarven units, making them easier to run over. Sons of Durin charging into the Brotherhood of the Lance, trying to defend the catapults, but I think the catapult is pretty much gone at this point. This is one solitary Blacklock engineer standing amidst a mountain of corpses, firing into who knows what, probably the Isengard crossbows. Dwarven infantry has now broken through. The Isengard crossbows on the run. The rest of them firing into the rear of this large amount of Dwarven infantry that is pursuing a single solitary unit of crossbow. Glowbox is now going to split up his units, which is a good idea, not putting too many of your eggs in one basket. And the rest of the Isengard crossbows are going to be forced to flee, leaving one understrength unit behind to hold the line. Over here, the Uruk Reavers putting up their last, final, and desperate stand. Their backs against, I wouldn't even call that a wall, their backs against the fence. Being pinned in place by the Mithril Guard, who are apparently still going to win. Sons of the Fallen fighting hard against them as well, having lost but few of their number to the vicious axes of the Uruk Reavers. Some reinforcements here in the form of the Isengard crossbows. I guess they're out of ammunition or something. Just trying to do as much damage to the Dwarven infantry as possible. But unfortunately, the pursuing unit of Ironfoot Axe Throwers is going to catch up with them. And look at this, surrounded by some of the best Dwarven heavy infantry in the game. Got some Khazad-dûm Reclaimers and some Dragon Slayers of Ard Mithrin. And they're going to rout almost immediately. Nobody wants to be in that kind of situation. We got some more routing Uruk Reavers. Looks like we had a unit of Archer Militia. I doubt they really got a whole lot done, though. They might have been hiding on the back here. Looks like... Oh, wow. That was a beautiful charge there from the Varied Cataphracts into the Dwarven Noblemen. That is the kind of result that is going to win Konn this game, if they can keep that up. That's exactly what they want. A big charge like that where they lose maybe a few units, but damn, do they devastate that unit of Dwarven heavy infantry. The Dwarves now going to circle the wagons. Looks like they've still got their catapults. Still 2 functional catapults at this point with 4 crewmen, and I believe that Konn is completely out of ammunition with their Brotherhood of the Bow, so that's going to be a bit of a problem, I think, for the remaining cataphracts. It's like they're going after Isengard. I don't understand this. I mean, keeping these Isengard crossbows alive would really go a long way to helping Konn. And they're not much of a threat to his cavalry corps either. I would definitely have kept them alive and tried to work with the remaining Isengard crossbows as much as humanly possible. What do we got here? Some nerdy-eyed cataphracts charging in the battle against Sons of the Fallen. Just going to get themselves surrounded and quickly destroyed. Looks like they are actually fighting to the death. And those poor cataphracts are going to get skewered on the ends of those deadly spears of the Sons of the Fallen. All told, it's been quite bloody. Looks like we got some Neurad Windblades, all that remains of them, 5 of them, stalking the streets looking for an opportunity, but there's not really much for them. They are light cav. Not a lot of archers left over. I think most of the Ironfoot crossbows died in some sordid fashion or another.
Our army is tiring.
Nerdy-eyed cataphracts over here, ensuring that the dwarves are completely surrounded, but all they're going to do is serry their ranks and circle the wagons and not let any of that cavalry get in there. Well, let's see what the dwarves do. Looks like we're going to have a little bit of a waiting game here. Oh, hold on a second. Hold the phone. This is not quite over yet. It looks like the Orcs of the Misty Mountains under mechanics still in the fight. A lot of snug archers here, though. I don't know if they're going to be able to make a big difference. Oh, they still got their bodyguards, though, in very good condition. A nearly full unit of Snow Trolls, a few missile units, got some Witch Realm Pikes here from Gundabad, and a Catapult, and some Warg Riders. Yeah, things are not over yet. Got some Bolts Champions in the back, and just more and more of them. Black Rurik Warband. Konn just wasn't able to do a whole lot of damage to the Misty Mountains, and it's the Misty Mountains who form the bulk of this force at this point. Misty Mountains now forming up. I wonder what the Dwarves are going to do in response to this. It would appear that they are going to sit here on the line, which I realize is not a tactic that makes people stand up out of their seats and clap. But in this kind of situation, there's not a lot for the Dwarves to do. They're going to be pinned against a very numerous Misty Mountains and Gundabad force with catapults, and of course the remaining cataphracts and lancers of Konn. So they're really between a rock and a hard place right now. So it's not a bad idea what they're doing. It's certainly defensible, I think. Really had to fast forward just a little bit here. Yeah, the Dwarves beginning to push themselves into a clumped up mass, which it will defend them against the cataphracts, certainly, but against that catapult, that could prove to be a liability. There's definitely an opportunity here for Mechanic to move forward, be aggressive with his catapult, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He recognizes the opportunity that Glowbox is giving him right now to deal with his strongest rival. He's definitely got the... I wouldn't say he has enough cavalry to deal with the Khandish Cavalry Corps to justify targeting or focusing all of his attention on Glowbox, but I would say that he's in a better position than most at this late point in the game. Well, let's see what they do. Konn is just sitting there, waiting patiently. Like I said earlier on in the introduction, this is the kind of game I think that Konn intended to play all along. Obviously, he didn't want to lose his infantry force the way he did, but having all of these cavalry and having your enemies in a place where you're going to be able to use your cavalry to its maximum effect in these wide open plains like this, that is definitely the ideal situation for him. And I think he's going to try and vulture his way to a victory, which is a perfectly valid way of doing things. Playing your enemies off of each other is pretty much how you need to approach an FFA. Oops. So we got some Brotherhood of the Bow worming their way around the side. I don't think they have any ammo left. Yeah, they definitely do not have any ammunition. That's the Konn General unit. I wonder what his thoughts are here. Menacing the Misty Mountains when you want them to attack the Dwarves and then try and clean up what's left of them. Probably not the best idea, especially if the Misty Mountains manage to get a hold of him. These Trolls, for example, are really fast, and if they get into a unit of cavalry, they can usually keep pace with them long enough to do some serious damage. Meanwhile, watch the Misty Mountains moving up with their catapults. We all know exactly what they are about. They're going to lock down this pass. They're going to take some shots at the Dwarves, and the Dwarves realize just what kind of a pickle they're in. They're going to charge right up the center, try and use some of these buildings as cover, but yeah, it's not going to work very well. A lot of these buildings aren't actually buildings. We saw some cavalry charge through that large one in the center there, and all the meanwhile, Konn is waiting there like a shark, looking for an opportunity to catch the Dwarves unawares, and best case scenario, get into their back with a nice cavalry charge. Dwarves are really running the gauntlet. This is very tense for them. One good hit from that catapult could do a serious number on Glowbox's chances to come out of this as the victor. And he's done a great job of keeping his army together and intact so far. Although I will say that it certainly helped that a lot of the forces he was fighting, like Eriador and Isengard, didn't have a whole lot of their quality units. Oh, a nice catapult shot there into the Dwarves, not doing as much damage since Glowbox at the last moment put his troops into loose formation. Looks like they're going to try and scoot around the edge here, maybe try and use these buildings as cover against the catapult and take the Misty Mountain forces head on. This gives Konn a serious opportunity. I think Konn recognizes. You can see their horsemen lined up in the back there. Brotherhood of the Lance charging into combat alongside some very cataphracts. Glowbox very wisely keeping his spears at the back. Sons of the Fallen getting themselves formed up alongside some airborne infantry. Airborne infantry are going to be the ones that Konn wants to focus on, and indeed, I think they recognize that. Nice charge there into the airborne infantry before they could get themselves formed up. and do a lot of damage to them. Meanwhile, they're getting peppered down from the rear. Glowbox in a lot of trouble here, but I think he can comfortably rely on his Dwarven armor to keep him safe from those arrows. More cavalry pouring in from Is this Gundabad in the Misty Mountains? No, it's uniquely the Misty Mountains. But speaking of Gundabad coming up the street here with their Scourge Raiders. Those are AP. Gonna do pretty decent against those dwarves. Goblin Trackers, just sheer numbers that can be used to surround and overwhelm the dwarves. Ah, nice. Some pikemen coming into the side of the dwarven line. Those orc bodyguards pushing up the center. Yeah, I think we're seeing the last gasp of Glowbox here. There's almost no way that he'll be able to fight his way out of this in time. The Misty Mountains now turning their sights onto Konn. I would definitely do that at this point. That's a lot of cataphracts. If you can get even 1 or 2 hits on them, that is going to make a difference. So we had some bold champions over there looking like they wanted to pick a fight, thinking better of it, fleeing. Konn actually being pushed out of position, probably by the presence of the catapult. Let's see how the dwarves are doing. They managed to form a fairly cohesive battle line, but they are being pressed hard, and they are quite tired after fighting off Eriador and Konn this entire time. Slowly but surely, the orcs are beginning to take a toll on these brave dwarven warriors. Witch Realm pikemen really holding their own. Surprising amount of them left at this point. Doing a lot of damage to those airborne infantry. You'd think that these guys would be able to push their way through there because of their high mass, but unfortunately no. Looks like Glowbox making one final bid for freedom, trying to push his way through with the Sons of the Fallen, and I think some of his Sons of Durin as well. Now reduced down to a meager 12. Sons of the Fallen trying to muscle their way into that gate. Looks like there's some Dwarven noblemen mixed in there as well. This is just one final push. Looks like Gundabad just lost his general to the Brotherhood of the Bow. Konn claiming the lives of one of the remaining Orc faction generals. Orc bodyguards pushing these guys hard. Everything that remains of the airborne infantry trying to put up a last stand to give their brothers a chance to flee. Konn coming in at the last moment, getting a nice charge into the Orc bodyguards and into the Snaga archers. Actually going to cause a lot of routing there. Mechanics Trolls moving forward a little bit too late though. Bolt's champions still in the fight, pushing against what remains, I think, the Dwarven infantry. There's maybe a few of them still left in here. Yeah, you can see some of the Khazad-dûm reclaimers and things like that. Got one lone cataphract who got caught up in all that mess, trying to flee for his life, being chased by some Bolt's champions. Let's see what happens here. The dwarves under Glowbox managed to get back in here. Not enough of them, I think, survived to really make a difference. And you can see those Blackwatch Legion. This is what I was talking about earlier. Just muscling their way through here. Bowling things over. Killing their foes left and right. Actually, some of the Dwarven infantry even got knocked over. And that is going to be a loss for the dwarves, I think. Even the Sons of the Fallen, these very high-mass units, can't keep their formation in the face of the Mordor Riot Police, the Boys in Black, coming to reap a deadly toll amongst the remaining Dwarven infantry. I don't think the dwarves managed to do enough damage to the orcs. You can see they claimed the lives of many of them, but it just wasn't enough. Konn charging into the trolls, trying to reduce that advantage. Gonna run headlong into the Blackwatch Legion though, and those Brotherhood of the Bow are not gonna be able to progress any further than that. These guys are just tanks. The troll's gonna give chase. Guys gonna want to be careful. There's enough cavalry here to bait him away, and at the same time come in for a cycle charge. Mechanic, I think, wisely recognizes that danger. Gonna pull his trolls back and try and preserve their numbers. Over here, we can see Pope Fluffy Duck trying to do a lot of damage with his cataphracts, but it's just not enough. There's too many pikes left, so 53 pikes, and all these Scourge Raiders and those high mass units like the Blackwatch Legion. I think that this is pretty much over. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put it on a little bit of a higher speed. Got a nice charge in the back here though. Brotherhood of the Lance backed up by some very high cataphracts, wiping out the Bolt's champions. Damn, that was deadly. You could really see the power of the very high cavalry corps. The Bolt's champions are nothing to sneeze at. Another big charge into the squishier units, but those pikemen already braced, moving forward, going to skewer a number of those cavalrymen. And that's going to be all she wrote. Very wisely placed here in the back of the army near the gatehouse so the cavalry can't get in here and interfere with the remaining scrap taking place inside the walls. So I have to say I was really impressed by this battle. Very fluid battle lines. Eriador started in here, fought their way, and fought on the other side of the city as well. Pushed their way out here, fought back and forth with the dwarves, did a fair amount of damage to them, probably the most damage that anyone has managed to do. And the Gundabad forces as well, and Konn fighting back and forth over here in this choke point. Konn's trying to make a clean escape here, but unfortunately getting gunned down by, I'm not too sure what, maybe some AP archers or something up there on the gatehouse. But exacting a fairly heavy toll in worthless goblin lives over here at the choke point. So it's been all over the place. I have to say, it's been quite enjoyable to watch. Let's see what we're doing over here. Yeah, the Runic, not Runic, I keep calling them Runic because they used to be part of Rune before they became their own faction in 0.9. The Variag Cataphracts doing their best here against the Blackwatch Legion that are backing up Witch Realm Pikes, but that is basically everything that cavalry fears. Nice charge there while the Pikes were unbraced and not expecting it by the Brotherhood of the Lands, claiming the lives of many of those pikemen. They're now down to 27, so they've killed half the unit of Pikes with cavalry alone, which is something that I think is fairly impressive. But it's just cost them so much. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot of the Cataphracts and all that stuff left. There's, I think, the Brotherhood of the Bow, a few... Oh, there goes the Dwarven General. Glowbox now officially out of the battle, getting his general's life claimed by a number of snow trolls. Not a bad way to go. That's a manly way to go. He should feel good about that. Very Cataphracts charging into the flank, doing their best, but as I was saying, Konn just doesn't have the numbers left at this point. Very Cataphracts, Nerniad Cataphracts, very heavily reduced. Brotherhood of the Bow down to a meager 20 and out of ammunition. Brotherhood of the Lance, I think, has like 4 units left in them, 5. Yeah, a meager handful of these Cataphracts left. All right, let's go ahead and let's put this on fast forward. Yeah, it doesn't look like Gundabad and the Misty Mountains show any signs of relenting and wanting to leave their defensive position. I think they're all well aware of what these Cataphracts can do. So Fluffy Duck is just going to say, it's just going to go for it and charge all the remains of his cavalry in there. Get as many kills as possible and put up a valiant last stand. And there we go. He's going to admit defeat, run away with his Brotherhood of the Bow, and preserve his general and his dignity. And that is going to be the end of the game. Taking a look at the casualties here, the very low casualties for Isengard and the forces of Eriador, but they were really only fighting the dwarves who are low number factions. That's a lot of high value kills. Pope Fluffy Duck getting far and, well, not far and away. He's rivaled by Glowbox, who killed a lot of orcs. But Pope Fluffy Duck, despite the loss of his infantry corps, managed to do a lot of damage with his cavalry, coming out with 664 kills. I can do, you know, basic math today. The Gundabad player doing a lot of damage. Most of that, I think, is the Konnish infantry. He lost a lot of his forces in return, though. So Konn and the Gundabad forces basically neutralized each other. But Mechanics still had a lot of troops left at the end. Look at this. 626 men remaining, 728 kills. A lot of that was dwarves. And I think it was just cleaning up all that remained of the Konnish cavalry. He was really on the front lines against the Konnish cavalry, which I think explains that low numbers. Glowbox, by far having the smallest force, but getting the most kills. That Dwarven infantry proving itself to be just deadly in this battle and in an urban environment like this where they can't be outflanked very, very easily. That's going to be all for me. I hope you guys enjoy this. Coming up next, I'm going to have a 4v4 on Warhammer 2, which is going to be cool. I've been trying out some new editing techniques and things like that for the battle, so I think you guys should check it out and give me a little bit of feedback on that if you don't mind. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.